A shinobi named Gabimaru foils attempted executions by beheading and burning and curses his inability to die. He explains to his interrogator that he underwent Iwagakure village shinobi training such that he developed a superhuman body and became an efficient killer. He says he was married to the clan chief's daughter, but after he asked the chief for permission to leave, he was betrayed to the authorities. After more fruitless attempts to execute him, Gabimaru faces his interrogator, who is revealed to be Yamada Aseman Sajiri, a Yamada clan sword tester and executioner. Sensing her skill as a calm and efficient executioner, Gabimaru experiences fear and fights back, especially after Sajiri asserts that he is still deeply in love with his wife. Sajiri abruptly offers a full pardon and government protection for himself and his wife in exchange for fulfilling a death-defying mission. He must go to Shinsenkyo, a legendary land rumored to hold the elixir of immortality, and retrieve the elixir in competition with other death row criminals. The promise of a peaceful life with his beloved wife prompts Gabimaru to agree unhesitatingly. Sajiri recalls her early training as an executioner and the difficulty she has had overcoming her fear and hesitation. The over 30 blindfolded condemned criminals who have volunteered for the mission are given their instructions by the 11th Seiyai Taishogun, Nariyoshi Tokugawa. They are shown an officer who returned from an earlier expedition but is no longer human, with flowers blooming from his body. They will each be accompanied by a Yamada Aseman. However, they are told to reduce their numbers, which causes a killing spree. While the shogun delights in the carnage before him, Gabimaru addresses him, saying there must be a better way to make the selection. The shogun's head guard offers a place on the mission to anyone who kills Gabimaru, who is then reluctantly forced to fight for his life, brutally killing his attackers with his tied-up hands. As the names of the 10 prisoners selected to go on the mission are read out, including Gabimaru, Sajiri realizes that her problem is not overcoming her fear of killing, but accepting the burden of responsibility for the lives she takes. As Gabimaru and Sajiri faced off against each other, tensions rose to a fever pitch. Each move was calculated, each word measured. In the heat of battle, emotions bubbled to the surface, threatening to overwhelm them both. Sajiri, steadfast in her duty, clashed swords with Gabimaru, reminding him of the mission's parameters. But Gabimaru, his resolve tested by Kisho's words, found himself torn between duty and his own survival. The memory of his wife's advice echoed in Gabimaru's mind, urging him to embrace his emotions as a source of strength. But the teachings of the Iwagakure chief, ingrained from childhood, pulled him back towards a cold, emotionless facade. As the battle raged on, Sajiri sensed Gabimaru's inner conflict. She saw through the facade of the hollow, recognizing the turmoil within him. In a moment of empathy, she offered him a chance to reclaim his humanity, to face his emotions head-on. Gabimaru, torn between his past and his present, he lowered his sword, allowing Sajiri to see the man behind the mask of the hollow. And in that moment, meanwhile, on another part of the island, Gantetsusai and his Aseman companion faced a different kind of threat. The discovery of the human-faced butterflies sent shockwaves through their ranks, as they realized the true nature of their surroundings. But amidst the chaos, Gantetsusai remained undeterred. His thirst for adventure drove him forward, even as danger lurked around every corner. And as they encountered a giant of unimaginable proportions, Gantetsusai couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement at the challenges ahead. Back with Gabimaru and Sajiri, the two found themselves confronted by a strange six-armed fish creature. With danger closing in from all sides, Gabimaru urged Sajiri to stay back as he prepared to face the creature alone. As Gantetsusai and Fuchi ventured deeper into the forest, the air thickened with anticipation. The dense foliage obscured their surroundings. Fuchi, meanwhile, struggled to comprehend his companion's motives. Gantetsusai's violent nature clashed with Fuchi's sense of duty as an Aseman. Yet, Fuchi couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a clearing adorned with magnificent statues. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, Gabimaru found himself locked in a deadly dance with monstrous foes. With Sajiri by his side, he fought with a ferocity born of desperation and determination. Sajiri watched in awe as Gabimaru unleashed his full potential, her admiration mingling with a sense of unease. The world around them had shifted, become a battleground where only the strongest could survive. Yet, amidst the chaos, she found herself drawn to Gabimaru's unwavering strength. Just as Gabimaru's blade seemed poised to strike the final blow, salvation arrived in the form of an unexpected ally, as a new threat emerged in the form of a cunning kunoichi named Yuzuriha. With honeyed words and seductive gestures, she sought to ensnare Gabimaru in her web of deceit. Gabimaru, however, remained steadfast, his loyalty to his wife serving as a shield against Yuzuriha's advances. Meanwhile, Toma and Chobai faced their own trials, battling monstrous foes with a ferocity born of desperation. Each blow struck was a reminder of their shared past, of the bonds that had shaped them into the warriors they had become. But as the battle raged on, Toma couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at his soul. The island seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, its very air thick with the promise of doom. Sajiri wakes up to find they have moved away from the butterflies whose poisonous scales caused her to faint. Gabimaru tells the others that while exploring alone, he discovered that many plants on the island were former samurai sent by the shogun. Senta also shares knowledge he gained since arriving. Genji suggests that he replace Sajiri in guarding Gabimaru as she lacks battle skills, but she refuses. Meanwhile, Yamada Asiman Tenza tries to leave the island by boat with the criminal Nurugai, last of the Sanka people, but they are blocked by a graveyard of samurai ships. They are attacked by monsters, and as they try to escape across the wrecks, they come across Yamada Asiman Kisho, still alive but with flowers sprouting from his body. Nurugai loses heart with the guilt of feeling responsible for the demise of the Sanka and waits to die. But Tenza refuses to give up, and together they fight their way back to the island. While drying their clothes, Tenza discovers that Nurugai is a young woman. They decide to circle the island to see if they can find an escape route. Gabimaru gives Sajiri the confidence to stand her ground and become a samurai against Genji's instance that she should become a wife and mother. Suddenly Rokuroda, the giant of bison, appears and tears a large piece out of Genji's body. Genji is fatally wounded, but when Sajiri tries to help him, he tells her to run. Just as the monstrous Rokuroda is about to attack her, she is saved by Gabimaru. Gabimaru tries to assess Rokuroda's abilities, but he is unable to find any weakness. The dying Genji realizes that Sajiri is treading the middle path between heart and reason, weakness and strength, and gives her his blade. She uses it to slice off one of Rokuroda's fingers, and together she and Gabimaru attack him. However, they are completely overwhelmed. Gabimaru is forced to use his Ninpo ascetic blaze mode techniques to attack Rokuroda with balls of flame. The jungle catches fire, producing smoke which starves Rokuroda of oxygen, and he collapses to his knees, enabling Sajiri to decapitate him. The island's giant monsters are attracted by the flames, so Gabimaru and Sajiri flee from the inferno in the direction from which the monsters came. They both realize that the sooner they find the elixir, the more lives can be saved and the quicker they can leave the island. They meet up with Senta and the ninja criminal Yuzuriha, and the small group arrives at a village. Meanwhile, after slaughtering the monsters who attacked them, Chobei Aza and his younger brother Toma come across two naked androgynous lovers kissing in the jungle. Chobei and Toma are confronted by the two Tensen, who see as humans as interlopers. Gabimaru's group encounters a young girl, but when he pursues her he finds that she has powerful abilities and is protected by a large wooden being. After they are both defeated by Gabimaru and Yuzuriha, the being offers to take them to a village. At the village, the wooden being Hoko and his young companion, Mei, offer them fruit, and he tells them that they call the place Kotaku on the island of Shinsenkyo. The island is divided into 3 regions. The shore and forest is called Aishu, the village is in Hojo, and the elixir Tan is located in the central region of mists called Horai, which is inhabited by the godlike Tensen who are immortal. Meanwhile, Chobei and Toma are easily defeated by the two lovers who are Tensen, and the brothers are dropped into a pit to be turned into flowers and become the source of Tan. At Sajiri's prompting, Gabimaru takes time to bathe and recalls his wife's advice to relax in order to be prepared for the battle ahead. Tenza recalls his early life as a street urchin when he was taken in as a student by the master Yamada Asiman Shion, who recognized his potential. Tenza and Nurugai continue their circuit of the island, but are interrupted by an androgynous Tensen flame-colored hair, which easily casts Tenza aside. Tenza uses his speed to slice at the Tensen, severing its head, but it regenerates itself and pursues them. They are saved momentarily by the blind but experienced Shion, who again decapitates the Tensen. He explains that he killed the criminal Akaginu when she tried to seduce him, but then he could not find a current to lead him off the island. Suddenly, the Tensen strikes again, striking Shion in the throat, and when Tenza attacks with his sword, he receives a fatal blow. In a last desperate effort to save Shion and Nurugai, Tenza attacks the Tensen with his bare hands, giving his life so that they can escape. Gabamaru becomes impatient and heads off alone towards Horai at the center of the island, passing immobile trees chanting sutras. He reaches a temple where he is confronted by the same Tensen who killed Tenza. Gabamaru uses all his skills and techniques against the Tensen, but it quickly regenerates itself. So in desperation he launches multiple rapid attacks which eventually succeed. As the Tensen expires, it is consumed by flowers which form a large half-plant and half-human monster. The monster attacks and grabs Gabamaru, who, recalling his training, uses his remaining energy to deal the strongest attack he can, creating a reprieve, and is then rescued by Mei. Hoko offers to take Sajiri and the others to Horai and look for Mei. Meanwhile, the 7 Tensen Shangdi Samantabhadra, Dadi Aksho, Jujuan Amikhavajra, Sagacious Dashing Ratna, Yuanjun Tathata, Gonggong Manjusri and deified Dijuan Kundi, gather to review the situation and partake of the elixir. Hoko offers to take the others to find Mei and Gabamaru, and explains that all humans who inhabited the island were eventually transformed into plants. As Gabamaru recovers consciousness, he is met by Tamiya Gantetsusai and Yamada Asiman Fuchi. In his present condition, Gabamaru is too weak to battle Gantetsusai and Fuchi, and after he describes the Tensen and their powers, they agree to collaborate. Meanwhile, Senta concludes that the island is not the real Shinsenkyo, and the mixed-up deities are not real gods, similar to the construct of Moro Makaya, the founder of a new religion who is plotting to overthrow the shogun, thus theorizing that someone created the island. Gabamaru questions Mei about the Tensen, and she mentions they possess Tao, while at the same time Hoko tells his group about Tao and how it is like the flow of Qi, a combination of yin and yang and centered on the lower dantian, below the navel. Elsewhere, while Nurugai presses Shion to teach her how to use a sword, they come under attack from a group of mindless monsters. Meanwhile, Chobei slowly drags Tommy from the pit of grasping flowers, where they are met by a doshi, a sentient monster unlike the mindless Sashin, who has been sent to investigate the human interlopers. Chobei attacks the doshi while Tommy slashes at an approaching group of Sashin. However, the doshi strikes Chobei a deadly blow. Even though Chobei was dealt a fatal blow, he recovers to attack the doshi again. This time he seems to have acquired some regenerative ability after being in the pit of flowers, and is also able to detect the Tao within the doshi and defeat it. Elsewhere, as Gabamaru and Gantetsusai fight the Sashin, Mei repeats the words, strong and weak. Suddenly, a half-human, half-insect doshi appears to capture Mei, whom he wants to return to the Horai. Gabamaru uncharacteristically acts to protect her, but he and Gantetsusai come under attack from swarms of insects. Fuchi understands what Mei is saying and explains to Gabamaru that Tao is a balance, weakness, and strength. So to see the Tao emanating from the doshi, he must acknowledge his weaker side. Gabamaru struggles to do so, but he begins to see the Tao flowing around the two doshi and is able to defeat them. Meanwhile, Hoko leads Sajiri and the others to the gates of the Horai, where a Tensen with magenta hair summarily removes Hoko's wooden head. The Tensen is revealed to be the peony Jujuan Amikhavajra and says that Tan is not an elixir, because if humans consume it they turn into plants. In lightning-fast movements, Yuzuriha slashes Amikhavajra to pieces, and then tries to poison it, but the Tensen regenerates itself each time. Eventually, Sajiri, Senta, and Yuzuriha utilize their own knowledge and experience of Tao to jointly attack and defeat the Tensen, although it leaves them injured and exhausted. Some time later, as Senta proposes that they find a way to save the other members of the expedition, the Tensen becomes a giant flower and fires a dart-like projectile at Yuzuriha. Senta throws himself in front of her and is hit instead. He begins sprouting flowers and imagines that he is painting a picture of a dancing Yuzuriha holding a parasol. The monster then fires a series of darts at the two women, which are intercepted by Cheyenne, who suddenly appears to save them. Cheyenne explains to Sajiri that he is using his awareness of Tao to counteract the power of the Tenshin. However, he is unable to defeat it himself and is wounded by its darts. Nurugai cuts the sprouting flowers from Senta, temporarily reviving him. Then Sajiri and Nurugai both attack the Tenshin from the front, enabling Cheyenne to attack from behind. They are unsuccessful until Senta suggests they attack its ovule, which is the vulnerable point of the plant-like Tenshin. The badly wounded Cheyenne manages to then strike a killing blow with his sword, and Yuzuriha consoles Senta as he dies. Sajiri proposes the Yamada seamen and criminals must cooperate if they are to leave the island alive. As they discuss their next steps, both Cheyenne and Yuzuriha question Sajiri's relationship with Gabimaru and speculate that what motivates him may be a deception. Meanwhile, Gabimaru awakens after collapsing from exhaustion and finds that he cannot remember the name or face of his wife.